freedom that changed the course of history. The holiday of Hanukkah was celebrated for the first time more than 21 centuries ago. Its symbol is the menorah, a reminder of a time when a small jar of sacred oil defied nature. For more than 20 centuries, the timelessness and joy of Hanukkah has reminded the world that the strength of the human soul cannot be suppressed, and that the truest battle is the one that begins from within. Now join us live as we span the earth, stopping in on celebrations taking place at the legendary Western Wall in Jerusalem, the Eiffel Tower in Paris, Red Square in Moscow, and the heart of New York City. Join world leaders from Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin to the British dignitary Margaret Thatcher. Give thanks for the recognition of modern miracles, from the nonviolent fall of communism to humanitarian food relief efforts taking place today in Somalia. And learn more about an ancient holiday that is as relevant in today's modern world as it was for our ancestors 2,000 years ago. As darkness falls, the flames of the menorah come alive, a global symbol that lights the human spirit from public town squares and cities to the private homes of millions. This is Hanukkah Live.
Welcome to New York, where we are joining you live from Brooklyn 770 Eastern Parkway, the home of the World Lubavitch movement, where thousands have come together to share a very special 60 minutes commemorating the Festival of Lights. Chanukah is a time for family gatherings and celebrations, but like most holidays on the Jewish calendar, children are the real focus of Chanukah. Fittingly, the synagogue here is now filled with girls and boys of every age who will be celebrating this year with their friends and relatives from coast to coast, from continent to continent, as part of this special global holiday program. Of course, no celebration in Crown Heights would be complete without the presence of the Lubavitcher Rabbi, Rabbi Menachem M. Schneerson, considered by millions to be the foremost Jewish spiritual leader in the world today. Despite health problems, the Rebbe, who turned 90 this year, has continued to direct Jewish activities the world over. Happy Chanukah, everybody, and wishes for a happy and healthy, sweet new year, the year 5753, that is, based on the Hebrew calendar, or 1992. My name is Yosef Mordechai Ben Tzvi Hershlev Halevi, alias Jerry Levine, and I am the Aleph Institute Director in Miami. And joining me again this year is Rabbi Shmuel Kaplan, the Regional Director of Lubavitch Activities from the state of Maryland. Good to see you again.
Pleasure to be here again, and happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah to you.
Hanukkah has as much meaning today as it did centuries ago. The themes of the holiday: the right to practice one's religion without fear of persecution, acceptance of God's sovereignty, and the belief that miracles do in fact still occur today, are all part of the eternal message of the Festival of Lights, and will be discussed later in the program. Also coming up, we will meet world leaders, from Nobel Peace Prize winner Elie Wiesel to the Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin.
We will also gain new insight into world events, including the current humanitarian mission in Somalia that were called miraculous by President George Bush, and see how one very special family is spending Hanukkah at home. We will also hear about what the holiday means to you. But first, let's hook up now with the major cities we will be visiting live during the hour. First on our satellite list of world cities is Paris, France, where thousands have gathered for a dramatic evening celebration beneath the Eiffel Tower. In Moscow, a city where freedom of religion was outlawed for decades and atheism was the only recognized state religion, we go to Red Square, where a special menorah will be lit in the heart of a city where observance of any faith was forbidden for generations.
In the holiest city on the earth, Jerusalem, we join the Chief Rabbi of Israel and hundreds of others who will take part in a ceremony at the Western Wall, the original site of the Great Temple in Israel. In Washington, the nation's capital, we will join General Pershing's own band on the White House lawn, where dignitaries are now standing by for a special ceremony.
And of course, we will spend some time with thousands of children gathered in the synagogue at 770 Eastern Parkway in Brooklyn, and see how Hanukkah is celebrated Lubavitch style. Today we are celebrating Hanukkah for the 2,157th time. Now, if it were possible to travel back in time that many years, we would see that one of the cruelest decrees against the Jews was the prohibition against studying the 5 books of Moses, the Bible. Of course, this decree and others failed. This fact is taught annually to Jewish children, and to see just what one class learned, we visited some 5-year-olds during the performance of their annual Hanukkah play called The Story of Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah, everybody. Welcome to our kindergarten Hanukkah production. Please join us as we take you on a journey back in time. The year was 170 BCE, and Antiochus Epiphanes became ruler of the whole Greek Empire. He then set out to unite all his subjects with one culture, Hellenism. He was successful in doing so, except with the Jewish people.
Any Jew who will be caught learning Torah, keeping Sabbath, and circumcising their son, and following the Jewish calendar will be put to death. No questions asked.
But the Jewish people continued to practice Judaism secretly. Children would hide in caves and study the Torah. When they spotted Greek soldiers approaching, they would quickly hide their skulls and begin playing with tops, dreidels. One day, the Greeks stormed the temple. They set up many idols there. They put a pig on the altar. They broke the seal of the high priest on every single jar of oil. A Jewish elder named Matisyah stood up and said,
Mila Hashem Alai, whoever wants to walk in God's way, come to me.
And together with his sons formed a small army called the Maccabees. Although the Greek army was much larger, much stronger, rode on elephants, and had more experience at war, the Jewish people had faith that God would help them. Judah the Maccabee stood up and said,
Just run through it, please.
and the Maccabees started preparing for war. And finally went to war with the Greeks. They fought 4 battles against 4 Greek generals: Apollonios, Saron, Gorgios, and Lysias. And with the help of God, they went over the Greeks. On the 25th day of Kislev, the Maccabees recaptured the temple. When they re-entered the temple, they found the mess the Greeks had left. They smashed the idols, threw the pig off the altar, and cleaned and scrubbed the temple until it was spotless again. They wanted to light the menorah, but couldn't find any pure oil. And they searched and searched until they found 1 bottle of oil. But it was only enough to last for 1 day, and making new oil would take 8 days. They lit the menorah, and when they returned the next morning, they found the oil still burning. And the same thing happened the next morning, and again, for 8 days. The Jewish sages declared these 8 days a holiday for all Jews. We celebrate Chanukah by lighting the menorah for 8 days. And in order to remember the miracle of the oil, we eat fried foods. But most important of all are the gifts we give to children on Chanukah. And that's the end of the story of Hanukkah.
4, 3.
For their special performances, we would like to thank the kindergarten class of the Beth Rivka Girls School in Brooklyn. And at this point, we are ready to join more children who will be taking part in a special traditional prayer recited during each of the 8 days of Hanukkah.
Of course, Hanukkah is a great time for children, and after all is said and done, Hanukkah is really a family celebration of warmth and joy. Now let's join one family I recently had the pleasure of visiting in their Passaic, New Jersey home, the Steinbergs.
I love to play dreidel with my sisters and brothers when it's Hanukkah. We have fun when we spin the dreidels, but the dreidels also tell a story. On the dreidel, there are different letters. Nun for Nes, Gimel for Gadol, Hey is for Haya, and Shin is for Sham. Nes is a miracle, Sham means there. They say, a great miracle happened there. When we play, we wait for our daddy to come home to light the menorah.
Do you know what time it is? Is it time to light the menorah? Does everybody have a menorah that they're ready to light?
Yeah, I'm doing the wick one. I know
You do the one with the wicks. And you got one ready to go? It's time to light menorahs. Who's ready to go?
First, my daddy lights his menorah, and then my brothers light their menorah.
Okay, let's see. Beyamin hahem bazman hazeh b'mitzvosat hitzivanu lehadlik ner shel Chanukah. Okay, go ahead. Amen.
I'm taking it.
Okay, you take it. Okay, that's right.
A miracle happened. The menorah lasts for 8 days instead of 1.
Hanukkah is one of those fun holidays where probably there's more focusing on presents and Hanukkah gelt, which is the money that we give out to the children, and eating latkes and spinning dreidels. And we talk about the meaning of the holiday, which is very important. But I think for the most part, there's a real warmth associated with Hanukkah, and it's a very much a family-oriented holiday.
I think Hanukkah is a very relevant holiday, particularly relevant to us today, that when we light the candles, we say a blessing that addresses specifically, in the words it says that there were miracles in those days and in our times. And we're reliving Jewish history today just as it was lived 2,100 years ago.
I know there are people all over the world who have been waiting to see the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem M. Schneerson, who they've been following so closely for so many years. It's great to see the Rebbe, who has come out now to join all of the children and the adults, the people who have gathered together for this very special Hanukkah program here at 770. We want to officially welcome the Lubavitcher Rebbe Shlita, which in Hebrew means he should live and be well, to our live program. And we're going to do something very special now, which is we've been keeping with a lot of children, now we're going to do some more of that. And they're going to do a special prayer called Al Hanisim. It's a special passage that declares our thanks to the Almighty for all of the wonders and the miracles He performed in the past and continues to perform today. We now go to that prayer heard in different languages, said simultaneously around the world.
This afternoon we join simultaneously with the entire world to recite the special prayer in all languages, the Al Hanisim. We now call upon Esther Cohen to lead us in the Al Hanisim.
And we thank you for the miracles, for the redemption, for the mighty deeds, for the saving acts, and for the wonders which you have wrought for our ancestors in those days at this time. In the days of Matasyahu, the son of Yochanan, the high priest, the Asmonean and his sons, when the wicked Hellenic government rose up against your people, Israel, to make them forget your Torah and violate the decrees of your will. But you, in your abounding mercy, stood by them in the time of their distress. You waged their battles, defended their rights.
Первосвященника и его сыновей, когда выступило злодейское царство Иван против народа твоего, сынов Израиля, чтобы заставить...
Tu as remis les puissants entre les mains des faibles, les multitudes entre les mains de ceux qui étaient peu nombreux, les impurs entre les mains des purs, les méchants entre les mains des justes, et les pécheurs entre les mains de ceux qui se consacrent.
הניסים ועל הפוגון ועל הגבורויס ועל התשובות ועל הנפלאות. Cleansed your temple, purified your sanctuary, kindled lights in your holy courtyards, and instituted these 8 days of Chanukah to give thanks and praise to your great name.
Thank you very much, Esther Cohen.
Lubavitcher Rebbe is one of the great advocates of children and Jewish education, having started more than 1,000 schools and affiliated institutions across the globe. But his unique influence is not limited to this community or even to the U.S. Yet many ask, who is this man with the black hat, the white beard, and the blue eyes? Where did he come from, and what does he stand for? Well, here are some answers and perspectives from world leaders that we think may surprise you. Where are we going? Well, you know, sometimes live television works perfectly and sometimes it doesn't. We had a number of things we wanted you to hear, and we are going to be going back to them in just a short while. But first, we're going to be going now to a very special place, Paris, France. We were there for the last couple of years for a very special Hanukkah menorah lighting held at the Eiffel Tower.
France is old.
C'est bon. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו להדליק נר חנוכה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שעשה ניסים לאבותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה. Mes chers amis, au nom de toute la communauté juive de France et au nom de tout le peuple de France, je voudrais adresser un très bref message au Rabbi Shalita qui nous écoute maintenant en direct jusqu'à New York et commencer par lui souhaiter une bonne santé et une longue vie.
To give the Lubavitcher Rebbe his personal blessings for a complete recovery, and his hope that the Rebbe will continue to bring light of Judaism to the entire world and to the Jewish population around the world.
Pour la dignité de notre peuple et pour la grandeur du nom de Dieu, la possibilité de continuer de diffuser son message.
You know, France has always been considered a leading center of Western culture, and today in Paris we are witnessing the greatest Jewish religious revival in French history. So it's a pleasure to be able to join the thousands, tens of thousands of people that are gathered at that symbol of France, the Eiffel Tower, for lighting of the menorah, a Jewish ceremony.
De la spiritualité sur la matérialité, que le bien triomphe, que l'énergie qui est en nous sortent pour le bien, et que dans le monde tout entier.
Many of the Jews that are today in France have really come from the North African countries, Algeria, Tunisia, and Morocco, and that's been part of the revival is amongst the Sephardic Jews, a return to their roots, a return to Judaism. And literally there are today tens of thousands of religious young men and women, families, who have been inspired by the Rebbe and are now leading a different kind of life. Not that it's anything which is different, but simply with the view of true morality of Judaism. This has all been the work of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and it's been seen, although he is in Brooklyn, you see that work is pervasive throughout the world. Rabbi Azimov, whom we see now, has just offered his good wishes to the Rebbe. He is really the man who began this whole process in France some 25 years ago. It's quite late in the evening now in Paris, and we know that there is an attendance of between 20 and 25,000 at the lighting of the menorah. The menorah itself is crafted from metal and plastic and was constructed by volunteers. The Jewish population of France is 700,000, and Paris itself has 200,000 Jews. Amongst the famous parsonages that we have in France was the famous commentator Rashi.
And thank you, Paris, France, for those beautiful and special pictures. I was recently in Paris and went to a very special service where I saw thousands and thousands of young people listening to the Chief Rabbi of France. It was extremely popular, and you really are seeing a tremendous revival there. Earlier, we talked to you about another very special person, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who we've been talking about. You've been seeing different video images of who you've been seeing at the synagogue in 771. We want to go now to the story that we prepared about this great Jewish leader.
Well, the first impression that I remember is the eyes of the rabbi. Blue, penetrating eyes that express wisdom, awareness, and deep penetration.
The Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem M. Schneerson, is the Jewish leader of a worldwide movement that has established more than 1,500 institutions since 1940. From Alaska to Tasmania, Grenoble to Vienna, Dnepropetrovsk to Moscow, from Jerusalem to Morocco, the Rebbe's global imprint will be found in the educational, religious, social service, and rehabilitative agencies he has created in communities around the world. They serve as centers of resources, reaching out to those who need education, understanding, assistance, and advice.
It's very clear to everybody who knows something about the Rebbe that the Rebbe is not an usual figure in the world and among the Jewish people. He's a special personality and an exceptional personality with his own views, his own ways of acting. And therefore he's a Rebbe, and therefore he's the Lubavitcher Rebbe.
The greatest quality of a person like that is fearless leadership.
Considered a brilliant scholar and selfless leader by those who admire him, he holds 4 doctorates and was a graduate of the Sorbonne in Paris.
He has, first of all, a vast knowledge of almost everything that has been written within the Jewish world up to now. That is very, very rare. Very few people can boast even anything close to it. The material that he knows, if not by heart, but at least knows what is written in, is enormous. Astonishing always people that meet him, the detailed information, the detailed knowledge that he knows about things that they suppose are their own expertise.
Within the Jewish world, the Rebbe is the 7th leader of the Chabad Lubavitch movement, which originated 2 centuries ago in the tiny Russian town of Lubavitch, a name that means City of Love. Like his predecessors, he ascended to his unique position of responsibility in 1950 as the result of his lineage, which can be traced back to the legendary David, King of Israel.
Somehow the presence of the man sends out an emanation of mystical quality that touches people who have never heard of him.
In the case of the Rebbe, he did take an interest in far more than the orthodox religious, ceremonial, and spiritual values. He was interested in seeing that the lives as lived in the real world or improved. And that, I thought, was quite unusual.
To date, more than 200 volumes of his teachings have been published in 10 languages. Before suffering a stroke less than a year ago, a condition from which he continues to make a brave and remarkable recovery, he would greet thousands of people from all over the world and every walk of life who would visit him each Sunday.
And what the Lubavitcher movement has been doing under the leadership of the Lubavitcher Rebbe has been to stop the fraying and to bring Jews back into the fold. And I was particularly impressed with that. I value it enormously.
He has succeeded to win the hearts and minds of practically many, many hundreds of thousands of Jews throughout the world and in Israel because of his love of Jews, because of his compassion, because of his leadership that I consider to be the greatest one in contemporary life.
The Rebbe has never taken a day off and customarily spends most of his time immersed in prayer or study, or can be found tirelessly giving of his counsel and directing Jewish activities. To his thousands of admirers, he is a symbol of faith, righteousness, and dedication, and a trusted advisor who is equally loved for his warmth and gentleness.
He's reached out, as few other Jewish leaders have done, beyond the Jewish world, calling on people to pursue religious knowledge and religious values. And in that sense, I think he is one of the great figures of our century.
Here we are now back at 770 Eastern Parkway, and joining the Rebbe himself here in Crown Heights in Brooklyn, in the heart of New York City. And one of the things in that piece that the Rebbe has really been successful in doing is talking about charity and why people should give charity. And I think one of the things we should mention is we saw some pictures of people getting dollars, that the Rebbe was giving out dollars. Maybe you could explain what the concept is.
It's more than just giving of dollar. It's the Rebbe taking each person that he comes into contact with and using him for a good purpose. So the Rebbe gives you $1 and says, here, be my emissary to do a good deed and to give charity to help a third person. And in fact, I am an emissary of the Rebbe too, though I do it full-time. The Rebbe has inspired over 2,000 of us that are around the world today, dedicating our lives to the furtherance of Judaism, bringing goodness into the world, all as emissaries of the Rebbe.
A very good cause indeed.
Perhaps nowhere in the world have events of the past few years been more incredible than in the former Soviet Union, where the wall of communism once seemed invincible.
What we have witnessed is the fall of communism, a new dawn of public education there, and record emigration as Jews and those of all faiths take flight in search of total freedom. We now join Moscow live, where a religious ceremony that would have once been unthinkable is about to take place.
С праздником Ханука, дорогие друзья! Огонь ханукального светильника. Это свет победы духовных сил нашего народа. Lubavitcherский Rebbe и его последователи показали весьма.
The Soviet Union has been a place where for years the mere mention of Red Square to anyone who was an observant Jew caused fear in their hearts. And yet today, look, a rabbi with a beard and a hat lighting a menorah publicly in Red Square. What can be a greater miracle, a greater event than what we are viewing today? I've seen this a couple of times, and I'm inspired every year when I see this. My own parents came from there, and I've sort of been brought up with all that sense of trepidation that went into observing Judaism in Russia or the Soviet Union. Today, thank God, it's a whole different story.
A beautiful menorah there in Russia, and I was there a few months ago, and it is incredible to see the thirst of people there for religion, a place where it was really impossible for so many generations, and then to see all of a sudden the wall of communism fall down, to see the people reacting not only in a way against government repression, but really coming forward with their religions, and now seeing so many revivals of different faiths taking place in Russia.
In fact, a colleague of mine who is working in Russia told me that one of the problems they have is in classrooms there's no space. Why? Because not only do the kids have to fit in, the parents want to come in to study as well. And so they're they're having a tough time with that, just teaching the parents. It's now after 11 o'clock at night in Russia, as we've just heard the blessings for the lighting of the menorah.
Of course, the rabbis say they're saying the appropriate blessings for the traditional lighting of the Hanukkah menorah.
He's saying that God made miracles for our forefathers. He could just as well say God made the miracles for us too in this day.
This is the Russian Army Band, which is playing in the background. Really a very historical event here. It's only been 3 years since Jews were allowed to light menorahs in what was the former Soviet Union.
The song that they're singing is one that was used in the underground, the Jewish underground, when they resisted the attempts of communism to stamp out Judaism. And now it's the Soviet military band, or the Russian military band, playing the song.
Looks like they're having a little problem lighting the menorah in Russia, and as anyone who's been there knows,
it's cold.
Gets to be quite cold there. I mean, take a look at that fur hat. I mean, he's not wearing it just because it looks good. And I'm sure it's pretty windy up there. I think it's somewhat miraculous that they could build a menorah that big with the kind of logistical problems you find in that country, which is in so many ways still in a real state of flux and a real state of disarray.
We just saw Rabbi Lazar, who is the chief rabbi of Moscow, a young American actually, who is spending a couple of years there helping to develop Jewish education in Moscow. And
Okay, good luck with your menorah in Moscow. I'm sure you'll light it sometime during the broadcast today, and thank you very much. As major changes in world geopolitics continue to radically alter the world as we know it, many are wondering, what does all of this mean?
The next piece offers a very positive perspective on these events and asks the question, are there really miracles, as was recently stated by President George Bush?
For if this age of miracles and wonders has taught us anything, it's that if we can change the world, we can change America.
What is a miracle? Location, Russia. The world witnesses the greatest political upheaval of the century, a revolution of monumental proportions that rocks the globe. Without war, in fact, without a single bullet being fired, the Soviet Union, once the most powerful communist nation on earth, is suddenly transformed. In an instant, the Marxist-Leninist system disintegrates before our eyes. Is this not a miracle?
The casualties of that order of magnitude, considering the job that's been done and the number of forces that are involved, is almost miraculous as far as the light number of casualties. It'll never be miraculous to the families of those people, but it is miraculous.
Location Kuwait, the most unique freedom-fighting coalition in history, led by U.S. troops, declares war on Baghdad. Fighting an aggressive dictator bent on dominating the Middle East and the world's oil, the enemy is crushed in just 100 days. Only a handful of Allied casualties are suffered in battle. Out of 93 deadly Scud missiles fired at Israel, 39 hit major population centers. Yet not a single life is claimed by a missile. Is this not a miracle? Location Somalia. For the first time, the mightiest nation on earth deploys its massive military for a solely humanitarian purpose, putting food into the mouths of starving men, women, and children held hostage in their own country. Never before has such an impressive array of firepower assembled for such compassionate purposes. Weapons become tools for nourishing mankind. Swords are literally beaten into plowshares. Is this not a miracle? Awesome technological breakthroughs transform the world into one global village. Through satellites, the final frontier becomes a laboratory for peace. Dangerous nuclear forces advance humanitarian research efforts, and the age of preventive medicine takes hold. The 5 books of Moses, the Bible, predicts a time when forces that generally threaten are transformed into clearly positive energies. Many believe that rather than a period of destructiveness, we are hopefully witnessing the upheavals of a world giving birth to a new age of enlightenment.
Certainly would be nice to see a world where we see total enlightenment. And I just wanted to ask you a comment. You're a rabbi, and I wanted you to maybe just discuss something for a moment. I know that Maimonides, who's a great religious philosopher, a person that much of the world looks up to, talked about in the Principles of Faith for Judaism that we believe in the concept that a Messiah must come and elevate the world in many different ways. And I know this is a subject that many, many different people are talking about all the time, and I wondered if you could maybe give us a little insight into that subject.
It is what belief what we find in the Bible itself. The Torah tells us that Mashiach will come, which to some extent we wonder about it in the day when we see extraordinary events, but we always also see a lot of tragedy and a lot of suffering. But one has to remember, just like we see in Hanukkah, good is accumulative. The good that has been done in the world for the last 3,000 years is all stored for us because spiritually it stays there. And so once we see this accumulated good, we can recognize that ultimately the world will come to a position where we will not need to have the struggle with evil. Good will prevail always. And so miracles, events that we see that are miraculous today, will be commonplace when Mashiach comes. And Maimonides does point out that it's not only a mitzvah or a principle of faith to believe in the coming of Mashiach, but beyond that, to await his coming, which means to sit in anticipation, to hope every day that today is the day when it finally ends and God will bring about a better world, a really, truly good world.
I know people are all looking for that in one way or another, talking about world peace, the age of enlightenment, what Jews call the coming of the Messiah, and I guess we can all hope that that day comes soon. And sometimes I think when you take a little different look at perspectives in the world, you can be surprised at just how much better the world really gets, and that the world continues to perfect itself, which is a little tougher sometimes to think about than thinking the world continues to move towards a negative.
But it requires only small acts by each individual, and that's why we're now launching a new campaign, which is going to be a Mitzvah Campaign for the entire world. It's a World Mitzvah Day, which will take place on April 2nd, and this is being just announced the first time right here, when we're going to try and get the entire world to participate in some good deed. A one day for a mitzvah for the entire world. Hopefully that will be the final step that brings us into the era of Mashiach.
It's a great idea. We can all do one more good deed. You heard it, April 2nd is the date. Mitzvah means connection or good deed. From the former capital of communism, which we were looking at a few minutes ago, we now go live to the current capital of world democracy, where Stuart Eisenstadt, the former chairman of the Domestic Advisory Council to the President, is about to light the national menorah. He also lit it for the first time in 1979, and we now join him at a special White House ceremony.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and happy Hanukkah around the world. I would like to introduce to you Mr. Stuart Eisenstadt, a chief domestic policy advisor to President Carter, an advisor to the Clinton campaign, and now an advisor to the Clinton transition. He will be reading to us a statement from President-elect Bill Clinton. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Eisenstadt.
Happy Hanukkah. It gives me a great deal of pleasure to read the first Hanukkah message from President-elect Bill Clinton. On the occasion of the lighting of Hanukkah menorahs in Jewish homes throughout the world and the special lighting of the menorah on the ellipse behind the White House, which has become a practice for the American Friends of Lubavitch, it gives me the opportunity to wish Jews in the United States and throughout the world a happy and festive Hanukkah. Hanukkah is a joyous celebration with gifts for the children and special food like latkes for the entire family, but it is a holiday, more important, which celebrates the indomitable spirit of the Jewish people, of the unwillingness of Jews to live under foreign tyrants and foreign rulers in the Promised Land, of a dedication to the temple of ancient days and religious traditions which have been passed down from generation to generation. The holiday of Hanukkah symbolizes why the Jewish people have survived and prospered, despite enormous odds, despite pogroms, despite unspeakable discrimination and horrors, and in our own time, despite the Holocaust. The leadership of Judah Maccabee and his family, the victory of a small band of dedicated people against King Antiochus and the might of an organized empire, the miracle of finding a tiny amount of oil to relight the eternal flame in the temple, and to find that it stayed lit 8 days and 8 nights. All of these are stirring messages for us today as we meet our own challenges in our own time. Chanukah presents...
Thank you very much, Stuart Eisenstadt, and thank you very much, everyone in Washington on the White House lawn. In just a moment, we will be lighting the Chanukah menorah here in Crown Heights, but first, in honor of this year's broadcast, the Lubavitch Rebbe has issued his annual message, which will be read in the synagogue at 770 Eastern Parkway.
Chanukah, the Festival of Lights, recalls the victory more than 2,100 years ago of a militarily weak but spiritually strong Jewish people over the mighty forces of a ruthless enemy that had overrun the Holy Land and threatened to engulf the land and its people in darkness. The miraculous victory, which culminated with the rededication of the sanctuary in Jerusalem and the kindling of the menorah that had been desecrated and extinguished by the enemy, has been celebrated annually ever since, during these 8 days of Chanukah, especially by lighting the Chanukah menorah. The menorah lighting also serves as a symbol and message of the triumph of freedom over oppression, of spirit over matter, of light over darkness. It is a timely and reassuring message, for the forces of darkness are ever present. Moreover, the danger does not come exclusively from outside. It often lurks close to home in the form of insidious erosion of time-honored values and principles that are the foundation of any decent human society. Needless to say, darkness is not chased away by brooms and sticks, but by illumination. Our sages said, "A little light expels a lot of darkness." The Chanukah lights remind us in a most obvious way that illumination begins at home, with oneself and one's family, by increasing and intensifying the light of goodness and holiness in the everyday experience. Even as the Chanukah lights are kindled in growing numbers from day to day. But though it begins at home, it does not stop there. Such is the nature of light, that when one kindles a light for one's own benefit, it benefits also all who are in the vicinity. Indeed, the Chanukah lights are expressly meant to illuminate the outside, symbolically alluding to the duty to bring light also to those who for one reason or another still walk in darkness. May the Chanukah lights continue to illuminate the pathways for all mankind.
וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל אהרון ואל בניו לאמור, כיס וברכו את בני ישראל אמור להם, יברכך אדוני וישמרך, יאיר אדוני פניו אליך ויחונך, יישא אדוני פניו אליך וישם לך שלום, ושמו את שמי על בני ישראל ואני אברכם.
Who is the chief rabbi in Melbourne, Australia, and also a Kohen from the priestly line.
The menorah in the Holy Temple. It is our prayer that the Almighty blesses us, that speedily to walk together with the Lubavitcher Rebbe to the complete redemption and kindle the menorah in the third Beis HaMikdash, B'mheira v'yameinu, Amen. We now call upon Menachem Mendel Stolik to lead us in the lighting ceremony.
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvoso וציוונו להדליק נר חנוכה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שעשה ניסים לאבותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה.
Said after the menorah is lit, we kindle these lights to mark the marvelous victories and wonderful liberation which you did amongst us for our ancestors at this season through your holy priests. During all the 8 days of Hanukkah, these lights are hallowed, and we're not permitted to make ordinary use of them, but only to look at them, so as to give thanks and praise to your great name for your miracles, your wonder, and your deliverance.
Shot that we're looking at in Jerusalem. The scene, of course, the Western Wall, a place that people of all faiths recognize as such a very holy place, and what was actually the outside retaining wall of the great temple. And of course, here we're seeing the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Schneerson, who is enjoying the sacred moment of singing this very important song simultaneously heard around the world.
It's sharing of joy around the world with a joyous song. And everyone likes to participate and feel uplifted by a joyous song, especially on Chanukah.
What number? Thank you very much, New York. And now we're going to go to some place we saw just a moment ago, considered by millions, as we said, to be the most sacred site in the world, the Western Wall in Jerusalem, which is actually located just a few feet from where the actual miracle of Hanukkah took place more than 2,000 years ago on the Temple Mount. We now go there live via satellite.
אחים יקרים, מרחבת הכותל המערבי שריד בית מקדשנו, כשלב כולנו מופנה אל בית רבנו, בתפילה ובציפייה לרפואתו השלמה של הרבי שליטה ולביאת המשיח נע ומיד, ברשות מרנן ורבנן ובשם מרכז צעירי אגודת חב"ד.
Rabbi Rott is introducing the chief Sephardic rabbi of Israel, who will be honored to light the menorah and to say a few words of blessing, which Rabbi Rott also included in his remarks. The hope of the thousands assembled there at the Western Wall, this holy site for all Jews around the world, asking God for the Rebbe's complete recovery.
לשם יחוד כתב ולחוש ודאי ותחילו רחים ורחים ותחילו לאחד י"ק בשם רב כ בשחדה שם כל ישראל. הנה אנחנו באים לקיים מצוות עשרת הרבנן להדליק נר חנוכה כמו שתקנו חכמים זכרם בברכה לעשות נחת רוח ליותר ולעשות יותר בראנו ויהי נועם אדוני אלוהינו עלינו מעשה ידינו כהנה עלינו.
Prayer being said by the chief rabbi, recognizing the holiness of the act that he is about to do in lighting of the menorah as a commandment of God. Amen.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שעשה ניסים לאבותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה.
Children's choir. May it be the will of God that the temple be rebuilt and speedily in our own time. And as we've mentioned before, hopefully every day with the coming of Mashiach will begin the process of the rebuilding of the temple.
WX 93 et 7621 JG 94. Il y a des enfants qui doivent...
שיפונה בייס המקדוש מפי עוללים ויונקים מקהילים צימות השם וצימותו של עם ישראל אדלסון. תודה, תודה רבה. ועכשיו מוריי ורבותיי,
If you're just joining us, of course, what you're joining live in progress is Hanukkah Live. You're seeing celebrations, holiday celebrations for the festive evening of Hanukkah all around the world. We're now joining the Sephardic Chief Rabbi of Israel, who's going to give his blessings from the Western Wall to people all over the world.
בכותל המערבי, מקום ששכינת עוזנו נמצאת ולא זזה מהמקום הזה.
We're standing at the Western Wall, the holiest spot, a place where God's presence always rests.
חמישה דברים ניגודיים, שניים גשמיים וטבעיים, שלושה רוחניים. מסרת גיבורים ביד חלשים ורבים ביד מעטים. דברים גשמיים, מעט אנשים חלשים, גיבורים וצד שני שהיו רבים. אבל שלושה דברים רוחניים, טמאים ביד טהורים, רשעים ביד צדיקים.
Two physical miracles that happened and three spiritual miracles that happened during the events of Hanukkah, and emphasizing that although the physical ones are in the past, the spiritual ones continue to illuminate us and are with us in a spiritual sense at this day and age as well.
שהכניס טהרה בעם ישראל, קדושה בעם ישראל, יראת שמיים בעם ישראל, אמונה בקדוש ברוך הוא,
And we're leaving now Jerusalem back to New York. We're about to say goodbye. One of the things we pointed out throughout the program is people can order a special Hanukkah guide and a little package with menorah and so forth. If you call 1-800-HANUKKAH, we'll be happy to send this to you absolutely free of charge. And there's the guide. And this is the second night of Hanukkah. There's plenty of time to get one. You should light a menorah tonight if you're Jewish. And basically, that's going to do it for us tonight. We hope you enjoyed this year's Hanukkah Live broadcast. Before we leave, I'd like to announce that in honor of world peace, as we said before, April 2nd has been declared a day for people of all faiths to do one good deed. Of course, you can do more if you want to. It has been written that doing good deeds are our real purpose here on earth anyway. For Rabbi Shmuel, Kaplan, and all of us here in New York, I'm Jerry Levine. Happy Hanukkah, everybody.
Shalom.
Will now be recited by Kessloo. Junior, let's go. Let's see the real Hanukkah.